Can you hear me all right?
We're live. Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Teacher on the Radio, and at my side here is Rick Quinn. Rick has made a big leap in his career as a curator and as an evaluator of music. Rick, what's the big news in your career as a music critic this year?
Um, well, for the past 2 months, I've been writing for the website popmatters.com uh, on music reviews and retrospectives.
So congratulations on that day. And I guess they had solicited a best of 2021 from you. Is that right?
Yes, they had asked all their contributors to send in some uh, top of the year lists from which they compiled their individual lists and then the 75 best albums of the year that they put up on Wednesday or Thursday this week, I believe.
And so you got yours done early, and you were even kind enough to share it with us.
Yeah.
So we all knew. I've been hiding mine from you guys, and I'm going to drop it at the end of the today's conversation. But I'm Andrew Smith, Rick Quinn, and I've known each other for about I don't know, a long time, 9 years, no, 7 years, I don't know. Anyway, so here is your top 10, and anything else you want to say about it.
Okay. You may go from 10 to 1.
However the what do you? I think you've been doing that. If you follow Rick on the socials, he's been counting them down very meticulously, like a slow drip on his Facebook. Why don't you go ahead and do that? Give us 10, 9, 8, 7, and all that.
Sure. All right. Number 10 is an album by the Killers, entitled Pressure Machine. This is one of about 3 albums on my list that was recommended to me by Scott Winchell, who will be joining us a little later to share his list this morning. It is a departure for the Killers. It's been described as sort of a postmodern Nebraska. It is a look on the perils of small town life post the opioid and just the late capitalist pressures. It's really an interesting album. It's not your danceable Mr. Brightside type of album, but really an interesting one. Number 9 is a throwback. I've spent much of the year looking at 1971 albums, and this is a figure from that era, David Crosby, who is now 80 years old, released an album this year called For Free. That's just some stellar creative work, given his age and the challenges of his career. He works with Michael McDonald on here, with Donald Fagen of Steely Dan. He covers a Joni Mitchell song. It's just a great album. Someone in the twilight of their day, still pumping out art. And with that, we end the male portion of my list. Every one on from here on out is female. Number 8 is Natalie Bergman, Mercy. Very interesting album that is born out of the grief of her losing her father to a drunk driver accident, and it's one of those albums you're not sure if it's indie pop, if it's Christian music. It is an amalgam of faith songs while wrestling with the darkness of doubt, and just a very interesting, profound album. Number 7 is Valerie June, The Moon and Stars, Prescriptions for Dreamers. This is kind of an ethereal, genre defying album that moves from dream pop to Afrobeat to funk and soul to roots music. She has a distinctive voice. It's just a mesmerizing album. Number 6 is the album Jubilee by Japanese Breakfast. Again, an indie pop, dream pop album that Michelle Zahner, who fronts Japanese Breakfast, said the album is about joy, but it really is about the span of human life and all its ambiguity and where we find joy in the midst of all this. A very interesting album. Number 5 is Amethyst Kia, Wary plus Strange. You may be familiar with Amethyst Kia as part of Rhiannon Giddens' supergroup, Our Native Daughters. This is her debut album. She is, like myself, this is the only crossover between the two of us. She is way more talented than I am. We both are from Chattanooga, but this is again just a powerful album. Her website calls it a collision between iconoclastic alt rock and traditional roots, and it's just a great album. The song "Black Myself" that she won a Grammy on for the performance in Our Native Daughters is also on here. Super album. Number 4 is Rhiannon Giddens' latest album, They're Calling Me Home, where she delves into folk music in traditional roots, American, African American, Irish. There's a stunning rendition of Amazing Grace on here. It is she continues to put out just stellar stuff. Moving into the top 3, number 3 is Brandy Carlisle's latest album, In These Silent Days. She really is reflecting on the state where she is in her life. There's some powerful looks here at parenthood, the unintended things that we pass on to those around us. Her voice is just amazing, and her songwriting is sharp. She's one of the bright stars of our current time. The last 2, I think last year I had on my list Phoebe Bridgers' Punisher, the year that I discovered her work. Number 2 and number 1 are her collaborators in the small little supergroup Boy Genius. Number 2 is Lucy Dacus's home video. One of the standout tracks is VBS, where she has this incredible opening line that in the summer of 2007, I was sure I'd go to heaven, but I was hedging my bets at VBS. And the whole album, home video, is around her sort of honestly looking back at her coming of age as a young teen in a southern town, Richmond, Virginia, that infused by evangelicalism and their mores. It's honest, it's raw, it deals with the tumult of relationships and the awkwardness of it. It's just she is a powerful Southern writer, and it's just a great album. And number 1 is Julian Baker, Little Oblivions. And I think if I was to sum it up in one word, this album is unsparing. It is just raw and confessional, and a spiritual experience in many ways, just because of the way Baker invites you into her lament and her opens up to to her pain and struggles with relationship, with meaning, with relapse. I can't say enough good things about it. The album. It is a powerful, difficult listen, but I was just blown away by it. So that's my list from 10 to 1.
I have to unmute myself. So Rick Quinn, everybody, from popmatters.com, where you can read several articles that he's written in the last month since he joined that staff over there. He also has a WordPress page, and if you can follow him on the socials, he's also on Twitter as well as Facebook. And a lot of the last couple of years, there's been discussions about equity in the music scene, in radio, or what used to be radio, in terms of blogs, publications, just who takes up space, how, and Rick really privileges diversity. He privileges counter privilege really on this list in terms of amplifying the voices of women, and I really want to applaud him for that. Later, I'm going to go last, but I picked a list of for today of things that aren't on your lists. I tried to anyway. There's going to be a little bit of overlap as we go through the morning, but I have just a lot of white dudes. It's embarrassing that my listening does not always reflect my values on that topic, because I really share what Rick is saying. But I think our next guest on the panel is really going to take us into different genres and really amplify that diversity even some more. I mean, we're starting here in Tennessee, but we're going to be going to Alabama and North Carolina. But we are, we're one millennial and 4 Gen Xers based in the Southeast who live for this time of the year when we get to share these lists with each other. I hate to be that guy, Rick. I have to make one minor correction. You said that Amethyst Thea's album was her debut. It was kind of her re-debut. It maybe was her more prominent debut, but she came out with a very rootsy album called Dig in 2013, and that's just what's on a certain very popular website that we all use to get our music. A lot of us use to get our music, and maybe we'll make a next project will be to make a collaborative playlist. We didn't do that last year.
Yeah.
I'm working on my playlist as well, but we'll be posting and sharing all of those that we can. But I'm going to drop Rick's full list in the comments, at least popping on my personal Facebook page. I don't know. We're streaming on Teacher on the Radio Facebook, Andrew's Facebook, and my YouTube channel. And you guys are welcome to just go on my page and amplify that stream if you want. But I'm going to put Rick's list in the comments, and we need to stay on. We're going to stay on schedule. You guys are doing really good, keeping us on schedule. And I just should have said at the top of the show here that actually we have all survived really bad storms in the South this morning, and a lot of us were without power, and we really want to just magnify our concerns, vibes, prayers, good intentions for those emergency workers helping people in Kentucky and Southern Illinois and some of the places that were hit even harder than us. But this is art is not a luxury for us. This is a part of our lifeblood, and so we made a commitment to get on here, even though a lot of us didn't sleep well last night or woke up to trees in the yard or whatever is going on. So let's welcome Amy Rock to the stream. Rick, I hope you can stick around. I know you probably need to get a nap in at some point, but also from Nashville, let's welcome Amy Rock to the stream. Rick, I'm going to take you off screen. Amy, how's it going?
Good morning. Glad to be here.
I like your hair.
Thank you.
It's good to see you on a screen. I haven't seen you in person since, I don't know, a show, whatever the last show was that we ran into each other at. But I'm just gonna shut up and give you the mic. Let's take us through your year in music, everyone. This is Amy Rock, former co-DJ of mine on the college station in Cookeville, Tennessee, where I still work occasionally. I haven't put up as many shows on the radio as I have in past years, given the pandemic. But I'm still working at WTTU part time, and a former very, very key part of WTTU of a generation ago, and huge friend of mine and a friend of this little annual. This is our second annual doing this. So everybody, welcome Amy Rock.
That's me. Hey, y'all. Let me tell you about my year in music. I was so stoked to have my first club show back in June with a band called Sungazer. They're kind of a jazz fusion kind of band, and the band leader is actually a YouTube music educator called Adam Neely, and it was really cool to be following all his videos and then getting to see his band live as my first show back at Mercy Lounge this summer. Following that, in July, I got to see some of my best friends play shows, and they've released some albums I'll get to in my list in a minute, but playing at the Springwater and the Cobra over the last couple of months, which were awesome. And then in September, I got to go down to Atlanta and Above and Beyond, my all-time favorite EDM artist. And it was so good to be reunited with a lot of my friends that I see at those shows. And Gabriel and Dresden opened for them. And Dave Dresden has actually spent the whole of quarantine doing live streams. I think I talked about it a little bit last year. So it was really cool to like be in person and just like really appreciate them for what they've done for the community over the last year. But the highlight of live shows this year was the end of October with Shaky Knees, which is my favorite music festival. Usually it's hosted in May, but this year they did it and were able to pull it off on the weekend before Halloween. And it was great. The weather was perfect. The Shaky Knees vibe was great. And about half my list is from artists I discovered there. They always do such an amazing job curating. I'm already discovering new favorite bands. They already released their lineup for this coming May, and I'm so excited to get back there. I don't think I'll ever go to any other festival. So now I'll jump into my list. I love that Andrew was saying that I am the millennial of the group, because I'm gonna try to carry that torch with my my list and my diverse taste. But I also like that we were talking about supporting artists that represent minorities, and Shaky Knees especially. I admire them. They've been doing their best to pull artists from other countries and just all sorts of diversity, like the first artist on my list, Joy Oladokun, who is actually my neighbor, lives here in East Nashville, but she is Black and queer and sings about that. And she's just very cool. Like, I got to see her at Shaky Knees, and just the way she talked from the stage brings you in and just like makes you feel like you're her friend. And she has a song called I See America that's her reflection of how the George Floyd murder and everything that happened last summer made her feel. So she's able to go in all directions. Very cool. The next on my list is another queer woman called her artist name is Semler. Her name's Grace Baldridge, and she hasn't released a album on a proper label yet. Both her EPs she released this year were self-recorded, like with just a little at-home setup, but both of them hit the top of the Apple Music charts for Christian music, which is wild that like a self-released something that's in a lot of ways critical of Christianity got to chart like that. And she's super cool, just very reflecting on her deconstruction, and a lot of just what she does outside of music is challenging the Christian establishment to affirm queer people, which is just a really cool mission. Yeah, check her out. The first time I listened through her EP called Late Bloomer, I was driving in the car with a friend and both of us were crying a little. It's very powerful and highly recommended. Third on the list, another artist I saw at Shaky Knees, Mammoth WVH. The WVH stands for Wolfgang Van Halen. And if you like Van Halen or just feel good Foo Fighters kind of rock and roll, that's just exactly what we want. It's so good, makes me feel good. It's just happy rock and roll. I love it. And that's kind of the theme of what my Spotify playlist ended up being, is just kind of like uplifting, hopeful music. And just stuff that makes me feel good, stuff that got me through the hardest parts of last winter. And Mammoth was definitely one of the artists that just makes me feel good. Next on my list is Little Nas X. I will definitely represent the young people on this one. That he's the best. He's the coolest. The way he takes control of the media narrative about him, and just how he is pushing the envelope of what can be a pop song. Montero, Call Me By Your Name, the first single from the album called Montero. You've probably heard about it. He's given a lap dance to the devil, and he very meticulously like took care of planning that all by himself, and like having a very clear vision of what that music video was going to be all about. I just heard last week that NPR picked that song as the song of the year. And it's awesome. The whole album has a lot of great hooks, and it's just really cool seeing his reflection of how he thinks the music industry has treated him since 2019, when he released Old Town Road and got shot into the spotlight. It's his debut full album, and I'm stoked to see what he does next. Over into the EDM genre, Elon Bluestone is a great artist in Juna Beats label, which is with Above and Beyond, and all the songs on the album Impulse are just bangers, just good heavy EDM stuff. My favorite track is called Hold On, and it features vocals from Alex Clare, and that was the first time I heard Alex, and it took me down the rabbit hole to discover his album that released in 2011 with a track called Too Close. And just the vocals are cool, but the meshing between like singer-songwriter type vocals and just sick EDM drops is right down the alley of what I love. So highly recommend Elon Bluestone, in particular Hold On, another just kind of hopeful, uplifting song I love. I want to talk a bit about the two albums from my friends that were released recently. The Dangerous Method released an album called Marriage just a couple weeks ago. Joe and Emily are a married couple, friends of mine, and Joe wrote these songs all about how hard being in their marriage has been, and it's heavy. Another friend described The Dangerous Method as if the Mountain Goats also had Jay Mascis in it, which I like that description. It's singer-songwriter, but also just kind of punches you in your gut, and it's amazing. And Joe and Emily are just amazing people, and I love seeing them succeed. So I highly recommend Marriage by The Dangerous Method. Just beautiful album. Another one of my best friends, Michael Arand, his band is called Taxiway, and it's more of a vibey, almost worship album sound. I had it playing in the background, and one of my friends was like, "This sounds like a worship album." So if you like that kind of like chill, contemplative sound, I recommend Taxiway. The album is called Absence, and I like it. It's he sings about just like millennial stuff. It's good. Um, got two more on my list here. Sun Gazer, I mentioned at the top, as my first show back. Adam Neely is just the coolest YouTube educator, because he talks about specific music theory stuff in a way that you can kind of follow, but also he has a bigger theme to what he's teaching, to kind of decolonize the way we think about music theory, because what we think is like correct music theory is really the harmonic style of 18th century European musicians. So what we think is like correct, maybe is just a one way to be correct. There's a whole world of music to consider, and especially as he works in the realm of jazz, like trying to fit even rock and pop music into this box of correct music theory doesn't really work, and we should appreciate that. So Sun Gazer kind of pushes those limits. He has one song that just plays with time signatures, really interesting. So he has whole videos talking about those different vibes. And yeah, it's just weird technical music theory stuff. Sun Gazer, the album's Perihelion. Last album I'll talk about is by an EDM artist called Marsh. It's not really a album more than a live set. It's called Live from Natural Bridge State Park in Kentucky. And it's best experienced just watching the YouTube video, because it's this DJ named Marsh setting up his little table with the turntables and stuff. But he's on top of the rock formation in the state park. And the whole video is just drone shots flying around the park, looking at him and watching the sunset. And it's just gorgeous. The music from it just really makes me feel good. These live videos of DJs playing their sets in exotic locations is one of my favorite music trends right now. There's a whole bunch of them coming out now. I think it's the advent of the 4K video recording that makes that possible, and it's really cool. There's more I could talk about, but I think I'm up against my time.
I have not been to a EDM live set in a really long time, but I have dabbled, especially in the aughts, and it was always about going out in the middle of the woods, at least with the crew in Western North Carolina that I ran with. It was always about going out in the woods. Joy Aladokun opened for Jason Isbell, and I echoed everything that you said about her presence and her ability to articulate her location. And she intersected queer and religious too in what she shared just in between songs of Jason. And that Semler drop, that was towards the beginning of the year, I believe. And I think she's been stalking other Christian musicians too, and getting them to like talk about the issue of inclusion. So
it's my favorite thing.
It's great. And I'm going to keep us on schedule. So from the beautiful and wonderful neighboring state of Alabama, where there's no animosity between our states of Tennessee and Alabama whatsoever. And Amy, I hope you can stick around for the round robin round, which will be at about 15 after the next hour. So welcome aboard, Scott, from Alabama.
Hello, everybody. I hope you're all okay from the storms. And our band's coming through right now, but hello from Alabama. I was so upset. Our Joy Oladukin opening set with Jason Isbell was canceled down here. She had to go into COVID protocol, and we didn't get to see her, but goodness. Well, I'd like to spend the first 10 minutes of my portion talking about Yoko Ono's influence on the Beatles. Nah, I don't. But I would like to talk about 2021 and all this music coming on. It's been such a crazy year. And music in 2021 it's the result of 2019 for the most part. A lot of what came out was worked on in 2019, and we didn't see it until this year. And we're also looking at the creative result of how our world changed through the COVID and everything. So it was really a difficult year for me, trying to figure out what good music was. I think people take for granted the process of creating an album. It is highly difficult to create a 10 to 12 song album that all the songs are great, from the writing, the performing, and the producing, and even the releasing. Very few albums are complete. You get 2 or 3 albums or songs into an album and it just goes haywire. And we see that a lot, the way music is curated and given to us now versus in our childhood, our youth, even 5 years ago. It is about the song. So some of my list is about that. And I'm going to get into my list. And it's not traditional. First of all, I hope you all get to enjoy this over the holidays. Billy Idol, Happy Holidays. It's not on my list, but you need it in your life. So there's one. And secondly, at the top of my list is an entire genre. And that genre is jazz. In some of my frustrations with the artistry out there this year, I was just like, I got to find something else to listen to. Jazz is a very underappreciated genre in our culture right now. And I was able to go back to some of the classics, absolutely fell in love with this guy, Bill Evans, and found some of his releases out there. But I also found all the modern jazz, especially an artist named Alpha Mist. Just kind of a cross section of jazz and R&B, and Little North, another modern jazz band that's out there. And learning and getting into that, it seems that jazz is new. Everything you hear is different. It's fresh. It's exciting. And I really encourage you to get into it. Let's get into the actual albums that I like. And the first one, in no particular order of my 10, is the Wallflowers' Exit Wounds, produced by Butch Walker. And Jacob Dylan came out and just absolutely wrote a blitzkrieg, really good top to bottom album. The songwriting's excellent. Roots and Wings was the hit song, which in our age, we don't get from radio a lot, or the way we get our music, how it's curated and given to us, the ability to sit with a song and let it grow with us. And Roots and Wings did that. It's a great example of giving the listener a chance to learn the album, to love it, to grow with it. Nashville and Birmingham both have 2 radio stations that still do that. And WNXP up in Nashville and Birmingham Mountain Radio down here, they really played diverse playlists more in the AAA genre, yes, but I really like how they will let you live with the song and let it develop. Number 3, I wish I had the picture of it, but I don't have it. It's Duran's Future Past. Oh my God. Top to bottom. The songwriting, the production, you've got guys like Giorgio Moroder in here, and you've got Blur's guitar player playing all the guitars on it. But Future Past is just great. There's a song on there called Anniversary. It's an anthem of life and celebration, and it's just so awesome. And you just feel like you're in 1987. You're in a club, you're on a dance floor, and Simon Le Bon and those guys, what great artistry coming out of Britain. The next one, which I haven't got yet, and both of these just have come out recently, is Sting's The Bridge. If you've heard Rushing Water, it's the single that's circulating right now. It's just fantastic. There's a song on it called The Book of Numbers, and it is just such a great companion to Bob Dylan's The Man in the Long Black Coat. It's about a guy that walks into a bar, and he's obviously God or someone connected with God. It's just wonderful. The instrumentation, the writing, the production, it feels like something that Sting would do at highest quality, and he has. Killer's Pressure Machine, this album here, it really struck me out of the gate, and Rick loved it too. And it was like John Mellencamp's Scarecrow to me in a different way. And I was really kind of upset with the vinyl release of it, because the vinyl release doesn't have the vignettes, the voice, the spoken word vignettes between the songs. But this album, oh, how awesome. And I tell you, if you haven't spent a good couple of weeks with this record, I hope you get to. My next album is, if you don't like this album and you have a problem with it, I can't help you. I came to peace this year with, you know what? I just like what I like. I'm not going to be afraid of that. I'm not going to write apologetics about it. And if I don't like something, okay, I don't feel the necessity to proliferate that I don't like it. But this is The Battle at Garden's Gate. This is Greta Van Fleet, the Kiska brothers. And I tell you what, this thing was recorded mainly in 2019 and perfected in 2020. And we got it here as the result. And this truly is a top to bottom album. These 320 somethings wrote it. It's produced and performed perfectly. And it's a rock album. It themes itself, and it has stories, history, lore, and just it's spiritual. It's all over the place. So Greta Van Fleet, The Battle at Garden's Gate. My next one is the DGs. And this is the Foo Fighters. And the first half of this album is Bee Gees covers along with an Andy Gibb cover. And the second side of it is some of the best rock songs of the year. Waiting on a War. It was probably my favorite rock song of the year. It's on side 2 of this. And I got to share a quick story about this. Hail Satin. That's the name of it. So I bought this album. I knew it was coming out. I bought it right when it came out, but it sat on my desk. I hadn't listened to it for a couple of weeks. This is how religious PTSD works. I literally, with all the evidence, I knew this was Bee Gees covers. I knew it was coming out. I knew it. I had every opportunity to know the name of this album. I literally, until I picked it up and cracked this open and listened to it, my mind thought it was Hail Satan. I really did. I thought it was Hail Satan. And I picked this up and then I go, oh, that's what religious PTSD is. So hope you enjoy that album. My next two are an ode to a city. Kind of goes along with, hey, I need to find some different stuff. But New Orleans released some great records. This is Chawa, My People. They're just a prolific, colorful, diverse, kind of second line band out of New Orleans. And this came out, it's just thumping New Orleans music. Ivan Neville's band, Dumpster Funk, that's been around since early this century. Just such a great album. Where do we go from here? Just popping, loud, jamming, jazz, funk, fusion. And my last two, don't have pictures of these, but here's an example of an album that got on my list on the basis of one song. It was Lord Huron's Mine Forever, or Long Lost with Mine Forever, the song. That song just did it for me. It just sounds like something that Chris Isaak released in the early mid 80s. And it sounds like you're driving down the highway in California against the ocean. Lord Huron just put a very atmospheric album together that really connected emotionally. And my 10th one, my final, is I I learned of this band in 2003 after they went through their first big change. Many people think of them as kind of a gothic emo thing, but AFI, A Fire Inside with Davey Havoc, the lead singer, Bodies. They released an album called Bodies this year, and I was like, oh my Lord, what is this and gonna be? And I found it to be a very evolved, strong alternative rock album that leads off with a song called Twisted Tongues. And it's about relationships. And it is, just imagine your post-emo band 10 years later and what they're dealing with in life. And that's this album. They produced it at a high level. The performances, the guitar, the vocals, everything about it is really good. So I wrap up my list with AFI Bodies, and hope you enjoy that. I'm loving hearing what everybody's listening to, the diversity of it. And I may be done a few minutes early. So back to you, Andrew.
Well, let's talk about Greta Van Fleet for just a minute.
Yes.
Okay, I want to talk about Greta Van Fleet, all right? Let me tell you my little thing, right? So in 2018, when their debut album dropped, Pitchfork, and I like good writing, so I actually like writing about rock, good writing about rock as much as I like rock. Like I really like to read a really good review, and I read a lot of reviews, a lot. And I used to have subscriptions to Relics, Rolling Stone. I mean, and I like physical media, and I have books. I have a whole huge library of writing about music. So I'm not against writing about music. And Pitchfork, they definitely are good. You know, they're articulate. But this 1.6, I mean, why the 0.6? Why not just give it a 0? I don't know. The 1.6 review of Anthem of a Peaceful Army was so snobby in all the wrong ways, and so predictably snobby on all. It hit all the notes you knew they were going to hit. The review itself was everything they accused Greta Van Fleet of. And Jeannie and I went to see them at the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville. If you've never been to a show in the Municipal Auditorium, this is the rock of the 70s. This is the venue that people like, you know, Kiss and Alice Cooper, you know, and Ozzy Osbourne would play. It's the venue that's in the Showtime show Roadies or in Almost Famous. And Roadies is really just a fan fiction that Cameron Crowe made about Almost Famous. But the Municipal Auditorium in Nashville is the venue of that vibe. Greta Van Fleet owned Municipal Auditorium for however long they were on the stage. And the people there at that show, they don't care about what Pitchfork said.
Exactly.
I mean, they were so in the zone, and like young people and old people, like, you know, my wife and I are not as young as we used to be. And people like our age with like embroidered jean jackets with like Greta Van Fleet, you know, like macrame or whatever you do to make, you know, your, I mean, and just the outfits people were wearing alone was in the same vibe. So, you know, I mean, and if it gives you joy, you know what I'm saying, Scott? So I applaud you for unapologetically putting Greta Van Fleet.
I appreciate that. And yeah, Rick just put in the messages, Municipal Auditorium. We worked as ushers there during college. And so we saw a lot of shows, and you're right. Hey, man, let the kids be the kids and do what they're going to do and develop as they are. Enjoy it or don't, you know, enjoy it or don't. And, but the last time I looked, Led Zeppelin hasn't put out a record since Coda.
Yeah, I mean, not everybody also has a Spotify funnel going into their ears, you know, 24/7, you know, and reading 50,000 blogs. I remember like years after Greta Van Fleet hit, some random Facebook acquaintance of mine post, "Have you heard this new band, Greta Van Fleet? They're so good." You know, it's like, just enjoy what you enjoy. All right, I'm gonna boot you off because we're into my 15. Thank you so much, Scott. Stick around for the round robin phase. And I actually got the out of order. Scott has already told some of his social media friends that he's going at 11. So what I realized, this list does not have diversity, but what it does have is stuff that's not on your lists and not on a lot of lists. I have only one thing on here that I think I've seen on another list. Only one thing I've seen on another list. I actually stole it from the Pop Matters folk albums of the year, Rick. And this is mostly in folk and Americana. I'm going to drift a little bit off into folk punk. But the only thing that's going to be really familiar, I think, to some of y'all, because we've talked about this, my number 10 on this list is called The List. That's not on your list. Number 10 is Sun Volt. And a couple years ago, I got really into Uncle Tupelo, and because a lot of the lane, the Americana dad rock lane that I'm in, descends from Uncle Tupelo. I'm also obsessed with Wilco and Jeff Tweedy, but I have a really, really good friend who died a couple years ago, and Rick and I are taking a break from our fanzine, but we put out a fanzine for about 3 years, and I wrote a long tribute to my friend who died, who got me even more into Wilco. And then I realized I think I musically like Sun Volt better than Wilco, and I'm kind of obsessed with the whole, just everything that that Jay Farrar is doing in that band. But Electro Melodier is a fantastic album front to back, and really it hits a note as far as, kind of old school activist rock. I mean, that they came up during, post Reagan, but there's just a continuity for, kind of, activist college rock that goes back, to the Minutemen and REM for me that you hear in Sun Volt. Number 9, this is just kind of, I'm just throwing this in there because I could, and I found this album looking for something else. And then I got onto a podcast about political albums, and I found this indigenous artist called Frank Waln, and his album is called In the Key of Lakota. But one of the projects I've been involved in my local community is trying to get a local school to change its mascot to follow after the Cleveland baseball team and the Washington football team and other professional sports organizations that are taking away mascots that they've known have been offensive. But finally, the public outcry and consensus has moved us in that direction. And this blends traditional First Nations music with hip hop and rock and kind of punk and folk, all just mixed in together. And it's very much an outlier as far as just something very underground and DIY. Frank Wallen's In the Key of the Lakota. This is the one I stole from the Pop Matters list, Rick. Is called American Silence by Chris Pierce. But it's a black folk singer, and he strikes me kind of in the way that Shamika Copeland did a couple years ago. She put out a very tuned to the social injustice album. Also reminds me a little bit of Andara from Minneapolis, who was one of my top albums a couple of years ago. But the album's called American Silence, and that's exactly what it is about. And it is a very devastating critique, but done in kind of, in the spirit of Dylan and Phil Oakes, but also, giving really voice to what I think is now looking at your list, Rick, this is an emerging genre that I could call African Americana. So there's a whole emerging black folk, black country movement, and it's just something else. And Danny Croha is an old pal of mine from Detroit. He was in a band called the Demolition Doll Rods. And I think in the Gories. He was in the Gories and the Demolition Doll Rods. He's got 2 folk albums out on Third Man Records, but he's just an old pal of mine from the neighborhood. They call it Midtime now. It used to be called the Cass Corridor. Is just the bohemian neighborhood from which the MC5 comes, and yesterday was the 50th anniversary of the Freedom Rally for John Sinclair, who was incarcerated for smoking pot or getting caught with a couple of joints. I think in speaking of John and Yoko, John and Yoko wrote a song, and I think the line is, they gave him 10 for 2. What else will the judges do? But I have a strong connection to Detroit, and Danny Croha's album Detroit Blues is just old-timey standards. It's nothing. It's really a covers album, and it's really just a nod to me feeling my Detroit roots in these days in which we are living, when so much is being called into the foreground that was in the background about institutional racism and the lineage of slavery and the lineage of the colonial project, really, that is North America. But back to the kind of almost like moonshine and honey kind of vibes of music. A guy I discovered this year but didn't put out an album this year, and hopefully put one out next year, and it'll be on next year's list, is Willie Carlisle. This kind of goes with this. It's Pony Bradshaw. It's called Calico Jim, and it came out in January too. And there's a couple of the albums on this list that came out in January or February that I've just really sat with all year. And I'm kind of also with the other Scott, you know, that you had an album that you grabbed, you know, Sting just happened, you know. There's some albums that have really just dropped that I'm really into, but a lot of the stuff on this list has been around all year. But this is like some of the vignettes on the Killers album, this Calico Jim record really, you feel the impact of the of drugs in rural communities. And this isn't a television shows of the year review, but in terms of poverty and drugs, I binged Trading Out episodes Netflix made, and then Dope Sick on Hulu. I highly recommend both of those shows to understand the kinds of stuff that comes up on that Killers album, and that definitely comes up on Pony Bradshaw's album, Calico Jim. The Psalms by Nathan Salzberg is completely unlike anything I've been listening to. And let me just, I'm a big fan of American music writer Amanda Petrusich. She writes for The New Yorker, but she's also put out several books. And she put out a book about the 78 craze. And she shares my obsession with Harry Smith and the folk anthology, and really just everything retro that's, you know, archival, found recordings, field recordings, and old 78s and old vinyls that had been forgotten being updated and being brought into the 21st century. So Salzberg, his day job is he's the curator of the Alan Lomax archive. Alan Lomax was a song hunter of folk blues and gospel, and I'm reading the biography of Alan Lomax right now, and he's just so incredible. Like in 1941, he staged a benefit concert with like Josh White Jr., Pete Seeger, Woody Guthrie, Leadbelly. I'm forgetting some names, but Burl Ives. I mean, whatever Americana was in the 40s and 50s. I mean, this man was the he was like the Bill Graham of 40s and 50s Americana, Alan Lomax. And so Salzberg's day job is he works with those archives. Rick, I'm going to send you his podcast that he just recently did about the music that came out of Parchman, which is the Mississippi State Penitentiary. And mass incarceration is just, you know, enslavement 2.0. And we need to talk about that as disproportionately poor, disproportionately black and brown persons. And but out of the blue, he's a cultural Jew. He was brought up going to Jewish summer camp. He was brought up going to synagogue, but he doesn't have a clear religious orientation. But now through quarantine and before quarantine, he put out an album of psalms sung in Hebrew in kind of like you would hear a cantor in the synagogue, but he's done it as kind of a pop, kind of folk blues album. And it's got collaborators like Spencer Tweedy, Jeff Tweedy's son plays on it. And Bonnie Prince Billy, and I'll get back to Bonnie Prince Billy in a minute, is on that record. But how I found out about Salzberg, I'd never even heard of the guy, was reading Amanda Petrusich's book, and he lives in Kentucky, and they got a tip on a record collector who had died, and the family said, if you're willing to clean it, you can have it. So they went to this guy's house, and they cleaned out this house of this hoarder, where you could barely even stand the smell, and they're going in there and they even got into a dumpster. So in the book, Petrusich and Salzberg are in the dumpster getting albums. So anybody who goes dumpster diving for albums is my friend. So Nathan Salzberg's The Psalms. And now apparently he lives just with his spouse, who's also a folk singer, but they keep Sabbath. They turn off all their devices at sundown on Friday, and they keep the Sabbath. It's an unbelievable individual. Salzberg is, and The Psalms is an unbelievable record. Catchy. I don't know if it's catchy or seshy. The guitar was stolen along with The Years of Our Lives, but he has a song. It's like a 7 or 8 minute epic song. It's kind of like Dylan's Murder Most Foul. It's called 2020 BC. And it's definitely folk, punk, and hip hop all mixed together. Collaborations. I think there was a lot of collaborations, and interestingly enough, some of these collaborations were people sending files, and so they're now mixing albums where people have sent audio files across, however they do that. Matt Sweeney and Bonnie Prince Billy, Super Wolves. Matt Sweeney has a career, out there, on his own in many different indie rock groups. And Bonnie Prince Billy, aka Will Oldham, has had a humongous career on the fringes of folk. Also lives in Kentucky. They put out what's basically a rock album called Super Wolves, which is apparently a sequel to an earlier album called Super Wolf. Blew my mind. I think on Mark Maron's podcast, maybe, that I first heard an interview with Andrew Bird at the end of last year. And I was like, Andrew Bird had just put out a Christmas album. I think it was this time last year. And Andrew Bird is somebody that I've always sort of been in my margins. And so I've become seriously committed to Andrew Bird now. And he released a collaboration with Jimbo Mathis, who you might remember from the Squirrel Nut Zippers. It's called These 13, and it's definitely folk, religious, kind of Southern Gothic. I think there is kind of a Gothic religious vibe going through all my picks. But my absolute favorite album, the album that has been my nearest companion the whole year, has been Langhorne Slim's Strawberry Mansion. And I've got, I'll put all these in a playlist for you guys so you guys can check them out. They're all fantastic. That I put them on here because they weren't on any of your other lists. But they're all dudes. And I apologize. I think they're not. There's a couple people that are not white. There's a indigenous person, and I don't think Ketchy is at least a person of ethnicity. I don't know if he's I'm not sure what his story is, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that. But all these albums, especially the top three were like my earbud companions all year. And Langhorne Slim's Strawberry Mansion is just a prayerful, euphoric folk album, and it had that emotional resonance that helped me cope with these difficult times, because I like you said, Scott, it's been some hard times. The Greenberg, I'm not seeing your face on your screen. Are you there, the Greenberg? Scott, you need to check your tech. Make sure your camera is on. Oh my gosh. Yeah, all we're seeing is a white box, Scott. I'm not sure, and I can't hear you either. Can you talk? Can we hear you? Scott, we can't hear. I can't hear. Can anybody else hear Scott? Scott, we cannot hear you. You might need to switch to a different device, like a phone, if you're on your computer, or your computer if you're on your phone. I'm gonna let him know in message as well. I think he's gonna re-log in. So after Scott goes, we'll have about maybe 15-20 minutes of round robin, and then we'll call it a morning. You're listening to a live stream hosted by me, a teacher on the radio, but everyone on this stream did this last year, and so this is a true collaboration. We have Amy Rock of Nashville, Tennessee, Scott Winchell of North Carolina, of Alabama, and Scott, the other Scott, and I, we've known each other, like Rick and Scott have known each other since college. Scott and I went to high school together in Southeast Michigan, in a suburb of Detroit, and Scott really got me. Scott kind of paved the way for me. So Scott had for everything I do right now up to this hobby, insofar as that he showed me it could be done. Scott had a radio show on the high school station, and Scott wrote a column for the high school paper. And I took over the high school music column, and I got a radio show at the high school station. And we had another buddy named Joe, and Joe was into REM, I was into U2, and Scott was into Springsteen. And that was that. Scott, you need to try a different device, I think, because you're not working at all. I know Scott has been so fired up for this morning, so I hope he can get his technology figured out. I don't know if it's a Mac versus PC thing or an internet thing. I'm gonna, while we're waiting for Scott to try to get back on, I want to keep it conversational. Who's got an idea that's been triggered by something they've heard in the first hour of this, wants to hop on the I'm just going to pop everybody in here for a second so you can see us all together. and you guys. We're going to keep this thing alive until Scott can get his technology figured out.
I know I shouldn't feel bad, but my entire list was dudes. Every bit. I didn't even think about that. And there were so many great female albums, and I put them into call. I mean, at the top of that, for me, it was like Doja Cat's album. That thing rocked. But the Natalie Bergman, Jade Bird, I love her.
I love her.
Oh, she's awesome. She was going to play here this week and it canceled. Someone got COVID, and it's fine. But yeah, I think there's a ton of great female artists. And holiday-wise, the Amanda Shire's Christmas album, it's good. I'm sorry, but you mentioned earlier, Amy, I think it was you. You said it sounded like Jay Mascis and the Mountain Goats.
Yeah, that's my friend's The Dangerous Method.
Yeah, he has a single that just dropped with Kim Gordon. And it's good. And I struggled with the Dinosaur Jr. album, putting that on the list, but it sounds the same as something they released in 1999.
Yeah, I didn't get through a full list of that. I'm just like, okay, it's Dinosaur Jr. Cool.
Well, since you mentioned Guilty Pleasure, Scott, I resisted listening to the Coldplay album, and then it was getting really, really mediocre reviews. It was amazing.
It was a great record.
Yeah.
Great.
And Scott, you mentioned the DGs. It made me think. I toyed with putting Barry Gibbs.
Greenfields.
What a great album! Yeah,
it was so well done.
It really was.
It was so well done, and man.
Brandy Carlisle taking Robin Gibbs track on Run to Me. Whoo! Put chills on the back of my neck.
Have any of you listened to this new Neil Young and Crazy Horse album, Barn? I have not.
Just one single, and it sounds great.
It's interesting. I'll have to spend some time with that. I just, and a lot of us have been around musicians. I think people don't have a clue what it takes to get a song, to get an entire album together. Massive. And, I was listening to the new Rick Ross album yesterday, the rapper, and I got through 2 songs of it, and then it just drops off. It just becomes the same thing. And it's not being negative against them, but it seems like the number of records I got through that I just couldn't get past that magic song number 5, because typically in history, it's the 5th song that kind of climaxes an album and goes down. And it was hard to get past that. But, Valerie June, Natalie Bergman, whoever it is, what we've been talking about, these albums tend to overcome that a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Greenberg keeps saying he's here.
Except he's not. So I don't know what to do about that. I hope he can. I hope he can figure out how to get back, on it. But let's dip into our honorable mentions a little bit while we're waiting for him. And I sure hope he can get on here. I mean, he's been ready for this since the minute we got off the call last year. So I sure hope he can get back on it. But, because there's so much good music coming on, the Black Keys had a great album.
They did.
Delta Cream dropped right up in the middle of this. I'm absolutely bonkers about a Strand of Oaks. And I love this guy's story. He's like me, very neurodivergent, I think ADHD or something. And he got sober from alcohol. I think he might be California sober, as they say. But he put together this unbelievable album called In Heaven, and he's just so exuberant in the record, but just in his appetite for life right now. I told you guys over the summer about that Big Red Machine album, which is just kind of like a super group. Can anybody see Scott's face? Because I cannot see Scott's face. I see a blank screen.
It's a blank screen. I don't know if his voice is there, but
Scott, can you talk? Yeah, we're still not hearing you, man. It's not working. I haven't gotten if you were on a phone or a computer. Yeah, he's not. Something is, or it might be his settings.
I'm scrolling through my albums, and I just the Billy Idol EP that came out earlier, that was really cool. But I just found Donda from Kanye West. I actually thought it was pretty good, but talk about a polarizing conversation. Bring his name up in a room.
So Dawes, it's not on any record. They've been playing. I see Dawes a lot. I think I've seen them twice, and they have a slag against Kanye West in one of their new songs, and the eruption of cheers when they slagged Kanye was like it was very reverberative.
Yeah. Do y'all remember the Metallica Blacklist album? It was all the groups that did covers of Metallica. That was pretty good. Good Lord.
Rick, you reviewed the Nathaniel Rateliff album. It's fantastic. The Future.
It really is great. It's kind of an expansion of their sound into some other categories, but also just some of the raw mainline stuff that if you love Nathaniel Rateliff's earlier work, you'll like it too. It's a great album. I was interested in circling back around to Amy mentioned similar. And I thought it's so neat the way the new technology, you talked about her about that album going up to #1 in Christian music, and it really is this new world goes around the industrial machines, like the whole CCM machine. Country radio is still very powerful, but I think they're starting to see some cracks in that. I don't know. Just be interested to hear what y'all think about the brave new world of streaming versus everything else.
I think there's been several things that have been said by different people, and I actually I wrote on my notes before the call today the word curation. How music is curated and brought to us is a whole different thing. It's not something that I think is necessarily good or bad or ugly, but there's a difference. When I was young, I subscribed to Rolling Stone and Spin. I sat there manually reading them. I could digest it. We had the top 40. And if we didn't have the top 40, you'd have radio stations playing, hey, top 10 or whatever. But the cycle of business would put a song out methodically, very controlled politically. The man put it out, and they told you what songs were going to be big, and they told you what artists were going to be big. It's not like that now. And you've got charts that change daily, that are dominated by one artist throughout, and the lifespan of those albums and the cycle's so quick that you're going to miss it. I mean, think of the Sting album. It came out not 3 months ago, and you don't hear anything about it. And and I can think of the albums, go through the list, they're just gone. And the radio stations who provide us that opportunity are few and far between, and most of us don't have the patience and the time to just, I think you said, stick a Spotify feed in our ear. We just don't have that time. So brave new world.
Yeah, it's wild. I think some of the songs that ended up on my Spotify were served to me by the Spotify algorithm. I did not pick it. My friends did not pick it. It just was algorithmically served to me, and it's different.
It's hard.
I have a frightening relationship with that algorithm, Amy. I mean, it has been incredibly spot on, because I know that those manufactured weekly drops, or even when I start making a playlist, looking for the suggested, look who's here. Oh my gosh, Scott, I can see you now.
Can you say pulling teeth?
Oh, well, look, we're going to let you do your list, and then we're going to jump back on, okay? Take it. First of all, from Detroit, the host of Debts No Honest Man Can Pay, from all the way from Charlotte, North Carolina, the Greenberg is finally here.
Yeah, I came in like a wrecking ball. Hey, everybody. Like Andy said, I am Scott Greenberg from the Debts No Honest Man Can Pay podcast. And before I get started with my list, Andy, I am super looking forward to seeing Kraftwerk at the Ryman with you, because when you think of the Ryman, you think of Kraftwerk and vice versa. Am I right? So, okay, my top 10. It's totally Marie Kondo. These are just albums that brought me joy. I go with my gut. I torture myself in the process, and they reveal themselves to me, not unlike tea leaves. So without any further ado, number 10, Open Door Policy from the Hold Steady. I fell in love with the Hold Steady with album number 3, Boys and Girls in America, back in 2006. Imagine the E Street Band on a Thin Lizzy Bender with a front man who you're pretty sure is the bastard son of Randy Newman. Craig Finn, they broke the mold when they made him, but make no mistake, keyboardist Franz Nicolai was the secret weapon. Franz took all of his weapons with him after Stay Positive, and then it was kind of, but he came back a couple years ago. They put out a collection of singles, but this is their first concerted effort as a reunited band, their first full-length album, not a collection of singles. The collection of singles was great, but this was them going, we're going into the studio. So Open Door Policy, Hold Steady, number 10. Number 9, the mainstream rock album of the year, Foo Fighters, as Christopher Walken would call them, Medicine at Midnight. I am an absolute stickler about don't overstay your welcome. Give us an album of 8 to 10 songs, your best, 40 to 50 minutes. Foo Fighters gave us 9. They could have given us 10, but they gave us 9. And so let's take a look at these. Making a Fire. If you don't agree with me that Making a Fire sounds like the last day of school when you're in 7th grade, I will fight you. Shame, Shame. Super slinky. Digging it. The title track is a perfect Let's Dance era Bowie homage. And of course, it doesn't hurt that you've got Omar Hakim playing on that. I dig every song on this album. It's all killer, no filler. Moving right along, number 8, A Southern Gothic from Adia Victoria. Barring an act of God, I'm going to be seeing her opening for Jason Isbell in January. I cannot wait. A Southern Gothic. It's truth in advertising. It's Southern, it's Gothic. It is steeped in some really creepy kind of dark and moody blues. And I didn't mean to say Moody Blues, but I did it, and there it is. So what the fuck are you going to do? Regardless, Isbell's on here, Margot Price is on here, Matt Berninger's on here, and that's great. But those are not the reasons why you should stick around. You should stick around because these are dark and moody Southern Gothic blues songs. Okay, up ahead, I've got a hat trick of albums that kind of traffic in what I like to call the deep, rich autumnal hues. After living in the South for 15 years, I hate summer. Summer ain't nothing but hot winter. I cannot wait until the fall. So I've got 3 albums that are very distinctly immersive, autumn influenced listening experiences. And the first one is Hey What from Low. You know Low. Alan Sparhawk, Mimi Parker, married couple, been making albums since 93. Beautiful harmonies, beautiful melodies. And with the last album, they decided, okay, we've proven what we can do, but let's go ahead and scuff it up. Let's add some abrasive, challenging textures and pretty much dare people to like our songs. And I appreciated the last album, but I love this. It is truly immersive. The songs melt into each other. Go for a hike after work as the sun's going down and listen to this. You won't be sorry. So when I'm talking about my hat trick of autumnal selections, Low's Hey What is the November. Moving on to the October, Adam Granduciel. You and I know him as the War on Drugs and I Don't Live Here Anymore. They are the absolute lords of Heartland synth rock. There was an awesome list a couple of years ago called, I believe it was A Primer to Heartland synth rock. I had never heard the term before, but it stuck with me, and I am a fan of Heartland synth rock. So whereas Low is November, cold, blustery gray, the War on Drugs are like the leaves as they're about to fall from the trees. It's that crimson tint to the evening sky. And the songs remind me a little bit of things from the 80s and the 90s, and I can't put my finger on it. So I like to say it's like stumbling upon a live stream of a lost mixtape from a version of the 80s and 90s that we're not quite sure actually happened. Our last of the deep, rich autumnal hues, whereas Low is the cold, gray, blustery November. And the War on Drugs represents that beautiful palette of leaves. Steve Gunn's Other You is early September, when you've absolutely had it with hot winter and you want that sweet, sweet, cool Indian summer, as what we were told it was called growing up in the Midwest. But it's still nice outside, but there's a breeze and you feel like you can think and feel again. And there's just something about Steve Gunn's Other You, which is just drop deadly gorgeous. It's sophisticated acoustic indie folk at its best. There is an awesome instrumental on here that is a lengthy instrumental featuring the great Mary Lattimore, who is one of the best harpists on the face of the earth. If you're not familiar, check her out. Just everything about this record is just, I keep coming back to all 3 of those records. Just so that brings us up to number 4. Straight out of Bloomington, Indiana. No, not John Mellencamp. Duran Jones and the Implications, Private Space. These guys, they're a hybrid of R&B and soul and funk and disco, and it is so goddamn infectious that I think the CDC needs to be concerned. And one of my criterias when I am putting together my list is, are these albums I keep coming back to? And are these albums that as I'm listening to them, I'm actually thinking, I can't wait to listen to it again. And this is one of those. This is a record that when I put on, I am dancing before I realize I'm dancing, whether it's just grooving in my chair or just flat out kicking the chair down and busting a move. If you are not dancing within the first 30 seconds of Duran Jones and the Implications Private Space, you might be dead. So, all right. There's going to be a shock to the system coming ahead. Yes, I buy the CDs, but I also buy the vinyls. And I buy the vinyls when they're not available on the CDs. And why do I buy the CDs? Because I like being in the moment of, I love the ritual of going to the store, holding the product, ripping the cellophane, being in the moment, as opposed to, I'm going to download a bunch of shit and forget that I own a third of it. So this was not available digitally. So I was happy to buy the vinyl of Ghost of Vroom. Ghost of Vroom 1 is the name of this album. And you're going, who the hell is Ghost of Vroom? Well, are you familiar with a guy named Mike Doty? A band called Soul Coughing? When we're talking the 90s, my favorite band of the 90s was Morphine. Soul Coughing was my second favorite band. They combined elements of beat poetry and jazz and hip hop. And they put out 3 albums. The first 2 were great. The third one was fine. I've seen them live 1.5 times. That's another story for another time. But I always knew we would never get a Soul Coughing reunion because Mike Doty and the rest of the dudes from Soul Coughing just didn't like each other. So Doty had been making a series of solo albums. And then a couple of years ago, he went on tour playing the entirety of Ruby Vroom, which is the first Soul Coughing record. And it was outstanding. And I thought, okay, great. I'm happy. And then during the pandemic, there was a 3-song EP called Ghost of Vroom 2. It was Doty along with upright bassist Andrew Scrap. What is his name? Andrew Scrap Livingston. I always have to look at that. And then this year, they came out with a full-length album. And both the EP and the album fully embracing that Soul Coughing aesthetic. And so I was listening to this and I'm like, it's not a Soul Coughing record, but it is. It's about as close to another Soul Coughing record as we're going to get. And I'm here for it. This record to me is like that moment from The Force Awakens where Han Solo looks to Chewbacca and says, Chewie, we're home again. And we are. So not Soul Coughing. I want to say Soul Coughing. Ghost of Vroom. Fun fact, Ruby Vroom is actually a play on Ruby Froome, daughter of producer Mitchell Froome, who was one of the producers on Ruby Vroom. But I digress. Number 2 record of the year. I am a sucker for Hammond B3 organ and funky instrumentals. When I'm in a record store and nothing jumps out at me, I go, do they got any Jimmy Smith? Because you can never have enough Jimmy Smith. And if you're talking about modern day masters of the Hammond B3 organ, look no further than Delvon Lamar, the Delvon Lamar organ trio. You got Delvon Lamar on the Hammond, Jimmy James, who is the most underrated guitarist on the face of the earth, and Dan Vanilla Weiss on drums, who looks like he could be the long lost brother of Jay Baruchel. But I digress. These guys, just funky instrumentals steeped in the deep tradition of Jimmy Smith and Booker T and the MGs. Finally got to see them live, and they were outstanding. And their interpretation of George Michael's Careless Whisper, hands down, cover of the year. And it made me care about a song I did not care about. So it made me care about Careless Whisper. So kudos to DLO3, as the cool kids call them. My number 1 album of the year. I slept on their first album. I slept on the EP. I did not sleep on the second full-length album from the South London-based UK quartet Goat Girl. It's called On All Fours. And first and foremost, these are 4 young ladies with fun stage names. Stage names like Clotty Cream, LED, Rosie Bones, and Holly Hole. But make no mistake, they mean business. These are songs that you can dance to or you can think and dance to. They make big statements by telling small stories. And I think that's probably like the most effective way of winning hearts and minds. If you want to talk about influences, if you're a fan of Stereolab, you're going to be over the moon for this. There's Stereolab influences all over this. It's an album that goes past my prescribed 10 songs, and I'm here for all of this. On top of that, it's an album that came out in late January. And even as I was listening to it the first time, I was thinking, I think I might have found my album of the year, or at the very least, it's going to be in my top 10. But knowing damn well that it was January, I was prepared for the fact that there were going to be other albums that could unseat this, and that Springsteen might just drop another record, which he did not. But that's neither here nor there. Point being is, I fell head over heels for this album in January, and I'm here today to tell you that Goat Girls on All Fours, my album of the year. And with that, I am going to take the mic. And, well, I'm not going to drop it because it's expensive, but you get what I'm trying to do. So imagine that I let go of the mic. So
I am so glad we let you go last, Scott. That was a performance art piece also.
I felt like I needed to bring it.
And if you guys haven't gotten me your type list, I think I've got Scott, Rick's, Amy's. I think I've got them all except for yours, Greenberg, typed up, and I'll put them together somewhere, probably on the Teacher on the Radio blog. But I think so, Scott, you only use Apple Music, or you use Spotify? Do you know how to work a Spotify?
Do I know how? Okay. So
I know work a Spotify.
Can you show me how to work the Spotify, Sonny? I prefer Apple Music, but I have a Spotify account because I realize that everybody uses Spotify. So I like to have Spotify so I can share stuff with people who don't have Apple Music, because I'm not a total savage. Ironically, my podcast is everywhere except Spotify, because Spotify does not cotton too kindly to music podcasts. And we are the rare unicorn of podcasts where we are allowed to play full songs, because I have a gracious benefactor who pays the BMI and ASCAP. And when they approached me about, hey, do you want to turn your show into a podcast? I'm like, yes, but can you handle the fees? And they said yes. So I feel insanely lucky. And I think I'm almost guilty. I feel guilty about calling it a podcast. I feel like it's more like a glorified radio show, because I'm not talking about murders and shit.
It probably would take you too much time to duplicate what you're doing, but now you can make a radio show with music on Spotify, and all of you should do your own. You have to use the Anchor FM app, but Anchor FM, I think, is owned by Spotify, and Anchor.fm, you can place the songs and actually do like a radio show style podcast. But I think then it won't export out to the other apps. I think it's Apple and Spotify that don't entirely play nicely together. But what I think I'll do, gang, is I'll make a collaborative Spotify list, and let's exercise some restraint. I don't know, maybe no more than 30 songs a person or something like that, and we'll get together something that we can share of the music, because I think talking about music is making pastries about baseball or something. I don't know. There used to be what was that saying from the 80s or the 70s that was anti-rock?
Writing about music is like dancing about poetry
or architecture.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. So Scott suggested, and we're doing this out here in real time to everybody, but he's going to, I think, set up some kind of a Zoom room or something that maybe isn't a public cast for us to commiserate and plot during the year. And maybe we can invite kind of like a music nerds support group.
I like that idea, because I feel like it's important to sit with other people and learn what they're listening to, because algorithms will only take you so far. And you know, if I wish I had known about that. I'm drawing Salzburg. I wish I had known about that Salzburg dude. And you know, if I had known that Amy was like had a sole allegiance to Shake Knees, I would have like started early on telling her why hopscotch is the only festival that matters.
Well, Scott, you will feel a lot of siblingness to Salzburg. Just go, and you can start now. I would start with one of the podcasts that interviews him, because he talks both about the new Jewish record and he talks about his work on the Alan Lomax archive.
Right.
There's a couple of good. I'd start with the Aquarium Drunkard podcast interview with Salzburg that came out a couple of months ago. So we've got, we're going to wrap this thing up in a couple of minutes. Why don't we just kind of round robin it out just with a few more comments from everybody, and then we'll be off of here in a few, just a few minutes. I want to thank you, Scott, for reminding me though, because I don't know how he fell off my radar only temporarily, but I absolutely love the Steve Gunn.
Somebody's making noise in the background. Somebody needs to mute themselves.
It's Rick. Rick has the hottest Bluetooth headphones ever.
Right.
Like if a mouse whispered, we would hear it. So I've muted Rick until it. And I don't know if he's got a knob that he can dial it down at all. But when I talk to Rick on the phone, sometimes it's like I'm like inside of his dishwasher. It's wild. He's got the most sensitive Bluetooth headphones I've ever heard. Is the Steve Gunn record that you mentioned, Scott, is absolutely incredible. And yeah. I'm not as gaga about the war on drugs as some people are, but I think you hit the note as far as, what did you say? It was like a mixtape from the 80s or 90s that we didn't know existed. Yeah.
Close enough. Because it feels like it's like, okay, there's ghosts of something here, but are they ghosts of things that actually existed or things that I just perceived to be there?
Are we done?
No, don't.
I mean, I could name off another 5-10 albums that I loved, but I know.
I'm just really surprised. Two quick things, and then I'm done. I'm really surprised. First of all, three things. It's wonderful to hear things on every list that I like. Ghost of Room. I can hear the axe swinging, and I just love Soul Coffee. So to hear that, to hear Goat Girl, to hear Mammoth, Wolfgang Van Halen, Natalie Bergman, all that brought up. Those were so great. I am really surprised no one mentioned Duran Jones and the Indications. And it's weird. They're huge here. And it didn't make my list either, but that's interesting. But the two albums I'm most looking forward to in the first quarter of 2022, Tears for Fears and St. Paul and the Broken Bones.
Okay, I gotta say, new Superchunk has got me excited, and plus we're gonna get another EP from Krungbin and Leon Bridges.
Krungbin, woo! My daughter introduced me to them.
They're a force of nature. I saw them opening for Chicano Batman, and they kind of sort of stole the show.
Can someone sell me on them? I keep seeing people being very stoked, and I don't get it.
Okay. So I love Krungbin because number one, I love the funky instrumentals. Number two, I love the fact that they're incorporating elements of world music and funk and just all different kinds of eras. And I'm like, I was introduced to them by seeing them live, and I was like right in front of the stage. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it. And you know, I think that we all are hardwired to like different things. I'm like, there's bands that people love that I'm like, I just don't get it. And when it gets to that point, you just, as much as I want to sit you down and like spend an afternoon with you playing Krungbin, at the end of the day, you gotta organically love it, or else it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Let me jump in here, Amy. So think about, the festivals you guys have all been talking about. So it's day 2 of the one in Kentucky, the horse one. I can't even say what it was called.
Horsey Fest?
No.
Pony Fest. No.
Jeannie, what was that festival called? Why can't I not say it? It's the name of the grounds at Keeneland, but that's not what it was called.
Palomino?
I know the one you're talking about. Yeah.
In Kentucky, there's a.
Yeah.
I've got the T-shirt here. So
Kentucky
anyway,
Derby?
no. What is
Let's just call it Horsey Fest.
The grounds at Keeneland, and the name of it's kind of like hobo-y sounding.
Right.
High water.
Railbird.
Yeah.
Okay.
Railbird. Okay. Sorry. I feel so much better now. Okay. So it's day 2 and it's been ungodly hot and you're really, really tired. And we decided that we were going to drive home that night. I don't know why, but maybe just save on the hotel room, or Jeannie had to work the next day or whatever. So we've got to make it to Cookeville that night. So we said we were leaving after, I think it was Isbell. We were leaving after Isbell. And it's a large festival and it's outdoors. So we're walking by the stage that's by our exit and the sun is starting to go down. So the sun going down at a festival vibe. And Krungbin is on the stage. And I mean, I'm sober a long time and I'm like, did somebody dose me? Like, am I rolling now? Like, what's going on? Like, I mean, we were both hypnotized. We stopped in our tracks. We had already left the venue proper and we were up against like a chain link fence with one of those kind of like mesh privacy barriers. So we're not trying to watch for free. And we're like, can we see? And they're using video and stuff. And first of all, they're really, I mean, they're eye candy. I don't know what to say. The woman who I think she plays bass, but
Laura.
I don't even know her name. But like all of a sudden, we're just like Jeannie and I both were just like, what is happening to us? And we were so mesmerized. We're like, we have to go see them. And I haven't really I've listened to them a little bit, but I want to go see them and then get into. So we're actually going to go see them for her birthday tomorrow. This weekend is her birthday, and we're going tomorrow to Louisville to see Krungbin. So
awesome.
And I don't know. And we left after like 5 minutes of that indescribable feeling that I just tried to describe to you. But yeah, there's something that when they play live, that's just like everybody gets in the zone. It's like the first time I saw the Flaming Lips. It's like the first time I saw My Morning Jacket. Probably the first time I saw the Grateful Dead. I mean, the first time I saw Fish. It's just they have, and they're much more experimental than any of the artists that I just named. But that's the feeling that you get while you're watching them. It's just indescribable.
And there's only 3 of them.
Amazing.
There's only 3 of them. I'm like the fact that they can create what they create with just 3 of them.
Yeah. Man, I mean, this is why we love live music. This is exactly the magic that we were missing out on last year, just trying to live stream stuff, being in a space with the artist, with other people, having that vibe is so indescribable magical. And I'm stoked to get to see this band next opportunity.
It's such a risk, Amy, and I'm so glad that you're back at shows, and we are too. But get your shots, everybody, and wear your mask. I did get breakthrough COVID, and I'm almost positive I got it at a concert. So, and I'm recovered from it now, and I'm gonna get my booster here in a minute. And I'm wearing a mask at shows. I don't think there's any harm in that. So, I'm trying to stay healthy. But I know I just ran into somebody who. And they've got littler kids, and so they're doing the stay-at-home parenting thing. But who was a show like lifelong and they have not been to a show. I mean, they're still not ready to go back to shows. And I respect people who aren't going to shows. I mean, because we're still in that kind of like weird world. I recommend a novel called Song for a New Day. It's a science fiction-ish novel that came out 2 years ago, and the author foreshadowed the pandemic. And it's about a society where both terrorism and a pandemic shut down live concerts. And it's about the underground kind of coming back after the pandemic and the terrorist scare to create live music. But most people go to something called Stage Hollow Live, and it's only virtual concerts. Like everything is virtual, and you have to wear a virtual reality like hoodie to even experience the concerts. And it's like it's like a version of like Amazon and Walmart and Spotify all are the same thing, and they're only running the concerts. It's a mind-blowing novel, and it's a page turner. Song for a New Day. I highly recommend that book to capture that feeling, that anxiety that we have right now, even though we are going back to shows.
Cool.
Rick, we'll let you turn your mic on if you want to say something to wind us out here.
Yeah, and thanks. Sorry about the venue change. I was running out of battery and had to switch networks, so I moved into another room. But I realized, and thanks for including me in this. I realized that I'm the lone non-professional DJ in this august body of gathered here to so I'm honored to.
I'm not a DJ anymore.
Well, hey, I remember your days as one of the Tennesseans' top, what was it, 3 morning drive hosts.
We figured that out.
L.P. Mayfield and Jerry House.
Yeah, exactly.
Seriously, no. Scott Winchell was in the top 3 morning drive hosts in Nashville.
Yeah, I've had to really come to terms with the fact that I can claim being in the entertainment business. I'm not in the music business anymore. So I really, seriously, on the live music thing, I've really had some bad tastes in my mouth about the concert industry and how understanding that business, how I've had to deal with this. I've thought about it from the artists too. I went and saw Manchester Orchestra a couple of weeks ago, and pardon my French, but I just feel like we had this big opportunity to change and to make some improvements, and no one cares. They don't care. They're just about putting money in the boardroom's pocket. And I went and saw a couple of artists, and I'm like, I just spent $100 to come and see you. The price went up, and you can't even come into the light for us to see your face. And don't give me this, oh, that's just them. You can't even show up with a decent show. And I'm sorry, man. I sat on those online concerts. I sat listening to how our roadies are out of work. I sat, oh, we need you back. Oh, it's great. Live music's back. It's tough. And so I'm, you better be bringing it if I'm going to spend the money. And frankly, I've spent more money on sports than music lately because I know what I'm getting.
It's really hurting. It's hurting the smaller artists more than anything, yeah, I must say, Rick and I are partial to Jason Isbell, and I do feel like his organization has tried really, really hard to be super conscientious about every aspect of this, bringing it back out again.
He was so gracious at his concert. He spoke about it head on. I didn't feel like I got ripped off seeing him. And same club shows, it's different going and seeing a show at Saturn here in Birmingham than it is going and seeing a Live Nation concert. You buy the tickets, you can't trade them. You don't feel, I don't have a problem spending $25 on a ticket. That's cheap. And I'm not getting ripped off, and you get a good personal show, but you're dead right about Isbell. He just sticks out.
But I think it's going to be hard because I think at the beginning of the summer, when the numbers went down slightly for a short period of time, and it looked like maybe the vaccine was going to stick a little bit more. I think we had this brief window of optimism, but since then we've had Delta, Omicron, and I literally I was not surprised when I got the breakthrough case because I've been already reading about people coming back from tour this summer on the jam band circuit because I go on a lot of their Facebook groups, and people were like, "Yep, I was at Billy Strings. I was at String Cheese. I was at Fish," and I'm pretty sure I got COVID at the show. So it is one of the most contagious things ever. Scott, you cracked me up. You made some joke. You made a joke about music being infectious. We went to see the Killers, and this is. I thought it was almost in poor taste, but at the Killers show, they send this guy out to the front. He said, "I'm the band's doctor." And I have to break it to you that the band is all tested positive for rock and roll, and then they come out and start the show.
That sounds like the Killers. That's awesome.
It was really super cheesy. They were great though. They put on such a good show.
Yeah, that's that Las Vegas in them. Yeah, I'd go see the Killers anytime. We saw them at Hangout one year, and and it was the year Weekend. The Weekend was there, and there were big artists, and they're great.
All right, you guys, we have an ongoing conversation on the socials. We'll keep going all year long. Happy, I guess Hanukkah's over now, but happy Hanukkah to you, Scott. Happy winter solstice to everybody, and Merry Christmas if you're celebrating. And stay safe, and wear your mask, and listen to more music. And I really want to I buy a lot of T-shirts, but I do not buy the amount of albums and vinyl that the two Scotts modeled for us. And so I really way to put your money where your values are around supporting your musician friends. I'm quite in awe of your music room, Scott Greenberg, and Scott Winchell. I was so impressed when you kept showing us vinyl after vinyl after vinyl. But behind me, I've got a drawer of T-shirts, and I do pretty much buy a shirt almost at every show anymore because I'm not always. I do have some of the vinyls, but I'm not keeping up with the vinyls like I used to, or the CDs. For that
I think we could probably have a standalone conversation about T-shirts.
Oh yeah.
I've actually got a record store T-shirt on right now, though.
Okay.
T-Bones in Hattiesburg, Mississippi.
Very cool.
So I'm going to show off my shirt. So I subscribe to a couple of things. I'm a Marvel nerd. I subscribe to the Marvel Collectors Course. That means every other month I get a couple of Funko Pops, a T-shirt, and a bunch of other tchotchkes. But then there's this other really cool thing on Amazon called the Marvel Design Vault. Every month, it's a different T-shirt, and you can't get them anywhere else. And it's just like, it's almost as if they commission people to do things. And so, like, this latest one is like a holiday snow globe with Storm.
Who's in it?
Let's see. Well, Storm, and at the bottom, you got Colossus and Logan and Iceman and Beast, Cyclops, and Jean Grey.
That's great.
I think my favorite one, though, was I have a T-shirt that's like Ugly Christmas style of the Infinity Gauntlet.
This is the intersectionality of our nerdiness now.
Yep.
It is. All right.
Oh my gosh.
It's time. I'll leave you with it. Anyone Ted Lasso fans?
Fuck yes.
Can you see my shirt?
Oh, Roy Kent.
My wife bought me a Roy Kent jersey.
Awesome.
Okay, the Ted Lasso Christmas episode was damn magical.
It was some of the best TV. It was great.
Although, if you're not already watching Hawkeye, shame on you. Get on it.
We have to do that now. I'm going to have to go in a few minutes because I have to take the rest of the day to watch the last 2.5 episodes of the Beatles. God, that thing's long, but it's soothing and good. It's so long. Oh,
I think I'm about halfway through the first episode, but yeah, I'm sticking with it.
How long's it been out? 2 weeks? I'm like in the second episode still.
Yeah, I need to check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it comes in doses. It's like a Dostoevsky novel or something.
Hey,
gang, I think I have to roll. Rick, do you want to say your last word? Go ahead, say your last word.
Oh no, I was about to take us into comic book geekdom, but I I can do that with Scott Greenberg off.
Awesome.
Okay.
All
right.
socials.
So everybody, virtual fist bump.
Yes. Thank you, Andy.
Yay. I really
Thank y'all.
appreciate the four of you so much. And Amy, thank you for hanging out with a bunch of Gen X dudes. I really respect your patience with us, and your list brought so much extra to this morning. This will be archived, and I think YouTube is the best place to keep it archived. So I'll share that YouTube link with you guys for you guys to share for posterity.
Cool.
And I'll put all of our lists together, and I'll start a collaborative Spotify. So beautiful day to all of you. I'm glad we all survived the storm, and we're gonna sign this thing off till at least probably the next live stream will be a year from now. But we're gonna stay in touch throughout the year and keep nerding out about music. So everybody have a great day.
I'm gonna make the offline thing happen because it needs to happen.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. Bye.
This is so fun.
Thank you.
All right.